Mary Flannery O'Connor was an American writer and essayist. An important voice in American literature, she wrote 2 novels and 32 short stories, as well as a number of reviews and commentaries. She was a Southern writer who often wrote in a Southern Gothic style and relied heavily on regional settings and grotesque characters. Her writing also reflected her own Roman Catholic faith, and frequently examined questions of morality and ethics. O'Connor's complete stories won the 1972 U.S. National Book Award for Fiction and was named the best of the National Book Awards by Internet visitors in 2009. Early years and education. O'Connor was born on March 25, 1925, in Savannah, Georgia, the only child of Edward F. O'Connor, a real estate agent, and Regina Klein. She described herself as a pigeon-toed child with a receding chin and a "you leave me alone or I'll bite you" complex. When she was 6, living at a home still standing, she experienced her first brush with celebrity status. The Pather copyright News People filmed Little Mary O'Connor with her trained chicken, and showed the film around the country. She said, "When I was 6 I had a chicken that walked backward and was in the Pather copyright news. I was in it too with a chicken. I was just there to assist the chicken, but it was the high point in my life. Everything since has been an anticlimax." In 1937, her father was diagnosed with systemic lupus erythematosus. It led to his eventual death on February 1, 1941, and the 15-year-old O'Connor was left devastated. O'Connor attended Peabody High School, where she worked as the school newspaper's art editor and from which she graduated in 1942. She entered Georgia State College for Women, in an accelerated 3-year program, and graduated in June 1945 with a social sciences degree. While at Georgia State College for Women, she produced a significant amount of cartoon work for the student newspaper. In 1946, she was accepted into the prestigious Iowa Writers' Workshop at the University of Iowa, where she first went to study journalism. While there she got to know several important writers and critics who lectured or taught in the program, among them Robert Penn Warren, John Crow Ransom, Roby Macaulay, Austin Warren and Andrew Lytle. Lytle, for many years editor of the Swanee Review, was one of the earliest admirers of her fiction. He later published several of her stories in the Swanee Review, as well as critical essays on her work. Workshop director Paul Engel was the first to read and comment on the initial drafts of what would become Wise Blood. During the summer of 1948, O'Connor continued to work on Wise Blood at Yaddo, an artists' community in Saratoga Springs, New York, where she also completed several short stories. In 1949, O'Connor met and eventually accepted an invitation to stay with Robert Fitzgerald and his wife, Sally, in Redding, Connecticut. Career. Regarding her emphasis of the grotesque, O'Connor said, "Anything that comes out of the South is going to be called grotesque by the Northern reader, unless it is grotesque, in which case it is going to be called realistic." Her texts usually take place in the South and revolve around morally flawed characters, while the issue of race often appears in the background. Most of her works feature disturbing elements, though she did not like to be characterized as cynical. "I am tired of reading reviews that call a good man brutal and sarcastic," she writes. "The stories are hard, but they are hard because there is nothing harder or less sentimental than Christian realism. When I see these stories described as horror stories I am always amused because the reviewer always has hold of the wrong horror." O'Connor's 2 novels were Wise Blood and The Violent Bear It Away. She also published 2 books of short stories, A Good Man Is Hard to Find and Everything That Rises Must Converge. She felt deeply informed by the sacramental, and by the Thomist notion that the created world is charged with God. Yet she would not write apologetic fiction of the kind prevalent in the Catholic literature of the time, explaining that a writer's meaning must be evident in his or her fiction without didacticism. She wrote ironic, subtly allegorical fiction about deceptively backward Southern characters, usually fundamentalist Protestants, who undergo transformations of character that to her thinking brought them closer to the Catholic mind. The transformation is often accomplished through pain, violence, and ludicrous behavior in the pursuit of the holy. However grotesque the setting, she tried to portray her characters as they might be touched by divine grace. This ruled out a sentimental understanding of the story's violence, as of her own illness. She wrote, "Grace changes us and change is painful." She also had a deeply sardonic sense of humor, often based in the disparity between her characters' limited perceptions and the awesome fate awaiting them. Another source of humor is frequently found in the attempt of well-meaning liberals to cope with the rural South on their own terms. O'Connor uses such characters' inability to come to terms with race, poverty, and fundamentalism, other than in sentimental allusions, as an example of the failure of the secular world in the 20th century. However, several stories reveal that O'Connor was familiar with some of the most sensitive contemporary issues that her liberal and fundamentalist characters might encounter. She addressed the Holocaust in her famous story The Displaced Person, and racial integration in Everything That Rises Must Converge. Her fiction often included references to the problem of race in the South. Occasionally, racial issues come to the forefront, as in The Artificial Nigger, Everything That Rises Must Converge, and Judgment Day, her last short story and a drastically rewritten version of her first published story, The Geranium. Fragments exist of an unfinished novel tentatively titled Why Do the Heathen Rage? That draws from several of her short stories, including Why Do the Heathen Rage? The Enduring Chill, and The Partridge Festival. Deteriorating health and death. In 1951, O'Connor was diagnosed with systemic lupus erythematosus, like her father, and subsequently returned to her ancestral farm, Andalusia, in Milledgeville, Georgia. Although expected to live only 5 more years, she managed 14. At Andalusia, she raised and nurtured some 100 peafowl. Fascinated by birds of all kinds, she raised ducks, ostrich, emus, toucans, and any sort of exotic bird she could obtain, while incorporating images of peacocks into her books. She describes her peacocks in an essay entitled The King of the Birds. Despite her sheltered life, her writing reveals an uncanny grasp of the nuances of human behavior. She was a devout Catholic living in the Bible Belt, the Protestant South. She collected books on Catholic theology and at times gave lectures on faith and literature, traveling quite far despite her frail health. She also maintained a wide correspondence, including such famous writers as Robert Lowell and Elizabeth Bishop. She never married, relying for companionship on her correspondence and close relationship with her mother. O'Connor completed more than 24 short stories and 2 novels while battling lupus. She died on August 3, 1964, at the age of 39, of complications from a new attack of lupus following surgery for fibroma, at Baldwin County Hospital and was buried in Milledgeville, Georgia, at Memory Hill Cemetery. A Catholic Life. From 1956 through 1964, O'Connor wrote more than 100 book reviews for 2 Catholic diocesan newspapers in Georgia, The Bulletin, and The Southern Cross. According to fellow reviewer Joey Zuber, the wide range of books she chose to review demonstrated that she was profoundly intellectual. Her reviews consistently confront theological and ethical themes in books written by the most serious and demanding theologians of her time. Professor of English Carter Martin, an authority on O'Connor's writings, notes simply that her book reviews are at one with her religious life. Works. Novels Wise Blood, 1952, The Violent Bear It Away, 1960. Short story collections A Good Man Is Hard to Find, 1955, Everything That Rises Must Converge, 1965, The Life You Save May Be Your Own. The Complete Stories, 1971 a Euro National Book Award. Other works Mystery and Manners, Occasional Prose, 1969, The Habit of Being, Letters of Flannery O'Connor, 1979, The Presence of Grace, and Other Book Reviews, 1983, Flannery O'Connor, Collected Works, 1988, A Prayer Journal, edited by W. A. Sessions, Farrar, Straus and Giroux. 2013. Legacy. O'Connor's Complete Stories won the 1972 U.S. National Book Award for Fiction and was named the best of the National Book Awards by Internet visitors in 2009. The Flannery O'Connor Award for Short Fiction, named in honor of O'Connor by the University of Georgia Press, is a prize given annually since 1983 to an outstanding collection of short stories. O'Connor was the first fiction writer born in the 20th century to have her works collected and published by the Library of America, which occurred in 1988. O'Connor's best friend, Betty Hester, received a weekly letter from her for more than a decade. These provided the bulk of the correspondence collected in The Habit of Being, a selection of the ones edited by Sally Fitzgerald. The reclusive Hester was given the pseudonym A, and her identity was not known until after she killed herself in 1998. Much of O'Connor's best-known writing on religion, writing, and the South is contained in these and other letters, including letters written to her friends Brainard Cheney and Samuel Ashley Brown. The complete collection of the unedited letters between O'Connor and Hester was unveiled by Emory University on May 12, 2007. The letters were given to the university in 1987 with the stipulation that they not be released to the public for 20 years. In June 2015, the United States Postal Service honored O'Connor with a new postage stamp. The stamp, which shows O'Connor as a young woman, went on sale June 5, 2015. The Flannery O'Connor Book Trail is a series of little free libraries stretching between O'Connor's homes in Savannah and Milledgeville. The Flannery O'Connor Childhood Home is a historic house museum in Savannah, Georgia where Flannery O'Connor lived during her childhood. The house is located at 207 East Charlton Street on Lafayette Square. Today, in addition to serving as a museum, the house hosts several events and programs throughout the year. Their most well-known program is the annual Ursary Memorial Lecture. The Ursary Memorial Lecture, founded in 2009 by Mrs. Elaine Ursary, Dr. John Hunt, and Ms. Betsy Kane, includes a reading and lecture and often educational workshops and gatherings. It is free and open to the public, and is endowed in memory of the brothers Terry and Ashley Ursary, native Georgians who, like Flannery O'Connor, were lifelong devotees of all things Southern, particularly the art of storytelling. The U.S. Postal Service's 30th issuance in the Literary Arts Series, a 93-cent postage stamp, honors her life and works. Notes. References. Further reading, GCSU, postmarked Milledgeville, A Guide to Flannery O. Unregistered Trademark Canora Unregistered Trademark S. Correspondence in Libraries and Archives, Georgia College and State University, 2002, Neil Scott, Flannery O'Connor, An Annotated Reference Guide to Criticism, Timberlane Books, 2002, Ralph Wood, Flannery O'Connor and the Christ-Haunted South, 2004, Melissa Simpson, Flannery O'Connor, A Biography, 2005, Louise Wessling, Sacred Groves and Ravaged Gardens, 2008, Harold Bloom, ed., Flannery O'Connor, 2009, Lorraine V. Murray, The Abbess of Andalusia, A Spiritual Biography of Flannery O'Connor, St. Benedict Press, 2009, Brad Gooch, Flannery, A Life of Flannery O'Connor, 2010, Jean W. Cash, Flannery O'Connor, A Life, 2004. External links, Southern Discomfort, by Wendy Lesser, Book Forum. Flannery O'Connor Find a Grave Memorial, The Flannery O'Connor Repository, Flannery O'Connor Collection at the Georgia College and State University. Postmarked Milledgeville A Year of Flannery O'Connor's Letters, Works by or about Flannery O'Connor in Libraries, Flannery O'Connor Entry in New Georgia Encyclopedia, Flannery O'Connor's Private Life Revealed in Letters A Year All Things Considered Audio File, 6 minutes. May 12, 2007. 5 O'Connor Essays by Joyce Carol Oates, Flannery, A Life of Flannery O'Connor. A review by the Oxonian Review, April 27, 2009, issue 9.1. Andalusia, Photographs of Flannery O'Connor's Farm. Southern Spaces, April 28, 2008. Glimpsing Andalusia in the O'Connor-Hester Letters. Southern Spaces, October 23, 2008. Andalusia Farm, PBS, National Book Award Classics,